Dharma to Abandon the Doubt, by Venerable Rungruan Papasaro, Dr. Rungruan Lim Chu Patapa. The lower fetter of confusion and doubt is kind of unwholesome thought of not knowing what it is. Principally, it is originated from the ignorance of not knowing the truths of life in the first round of the process of dependent origination. After then the mind is driven by confusion of not knowing what to be, and then the mind will keep on generating a new mental object with volitional formations before developing to become the confusion. Starting with an initial thought of ignorance, then being formulated to be confusion along the course of thought, and then the doubt of middle defilements, and eventually it will be complicated to be a delusion in the rough defilement. Having doubt is very common in searching for the truths of life within nature. But after then, we have to study, not just doing nothing. Otherwise, we may end up with carrying this doubtfulness to the death. In Buddhism, study is very important, as the Buddha suggested to have a threefold study strategy to understand a life and the world correctly. During performing the Buddhist practice, as long as the mind still has any doubt and confusion, then the mind keep on thinking, unfortunately, about something unwholesome, and the mind will not be internally steadied and concentrated. Therefore, it is very important to have a good study on the Buddha's teachings before rushing to perform the practice without sufficient knowledge. In this circumstance, the Buddha suggested to apply a proper dharma to handle the doubt and confusion as follows. In Buddhism, if we do not understand on something, then we have any doubt on something, and if there are so many possibilities, but we cannot know which one is correct, then it is a confusion. Both doubt and confusion are rooted from the same thing, this is, an ignorance of not knowing the truths of life within nature, so called the Four Noble Truths. If a person has a strong faith on something, but what he believes is not true, then the person may claim that he has no doubt or confusion, but in reality, he has an inside doubt and confusion, but he does not know. In Buddhism, it is the application of conducting research on Dharma on the Four Noble Truths analysis to investigate and to discover the truths of life within nature, such as observing the arising and fading away of a phenomenon, knowing the cause and effect, and realizing the benefit or harm of the arising phenomenon. Then there is nothing to be doubtful, and there is no confusion at all. In the situation if there is any doubt or confusion during performing a Buddhist practice, it is recommended to have a preliminary study on the Buddha's teachings carefully as a guideline in advance. The Venerable Sariputta explained about the wisdom development in threefold study strategy as follows.
In Buddhism, the Buddhist practice means to be pleased with hearing the true Dharma. Studying on the Buddha's teachings with careful attention to contemplate on the true Dharma. Having mindfulness to practice in accordance with the Buddha's teachings to contemplate on the Dharma. Investigation on the true Dharma, having mindfulness in accompanied with wisdom for the cessation of all defilements. When performing the Buddhist practice, having a mindfulness meditation, with effort, so that the mindfulness becomes purified with no bias to any arising mental phenomenon, then performing an insight observation on Dharma, and then seeing the truths of life within nature, as what the nature is. When performing the Yoniso Manasikara, the mind will become gladness, raptured, relaxed, happy, and concentrated, and then performing an insight to attain wisdom for disenchantment and dispassionateness, and then the mind is liberated. This is the way to gain wisdom of knowing what is right and what is wrong, what we should do, or what we should not do clearly. This is called a study in Buddhism.
In Buddhism, the simplest way to resolve any doubt and confusion is by studying the Buddha's teachings, and then performing a Buddhist practice to explore the truths of life within nature in order to gain wisdom on how to deal with the world rightly. The mind will have no doubt knowing on how to handle all the situations properly, and by then the mind will penetrate into an absorption to resolve the problem of initial thought in the next step.